Tonight, I'll take you to one of the most terrifying legends in America. A forgotten cornfield in Iowa that people say can whisper your name. Some call it just a myth, but after this story, you might never hear the sound of the wind the same way again. Before we begin, turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling horror stories. Because, after tonight, you'll understand why they call it the Whispering Cornfield. Ever heard the story about the cornfield that whispers in Iowa? They say, on the outskirts of a small town called Mason Ridge, there's an old farmland that hasn't been planted for decades. From a distance, it looks ordinary, but anyone who's ever passed by there at night knows something isn't right. Every harvest night, especially when the full moon hangs high above, people claim to hear sounds coming from deep within the field. At first, it just sounds like the wind brushing through the dry stalk, soft, harmless. But if you stay still long enough, the sound changes. It becomes faint, raspy, like a voice rising from beneath the ground. Not the wind anymore, but someone whispering your name. The people of Mason Ridge believe that voice belongs to Earl Thompson, an old farmer who once lived there alone. He was known to be hard-working, dedicated, but stubborn as a mule. Everyone knew that field was his whole life. He planted it, cared for it, guarded it like it was his own child. But one night in 1978, his farm caught fire under mysterious circumstances. The flames started from the middle of the field and spread fast, burning brighter than daylight. The townspeople ran to help, but when the fire finally died down, Earl was gone. No body, no bones, nothing. Only his old straw hat, scorched and half buried in the ashes. Since that night, no one has dared to go near that land again. Every full moon, the field seems to come alive. The wind turns colder, the air heavier, and from within the corn, a faint whisper begins to rise. Some say it's Earl's voice, still wandering through the stalks, calling out to anyone who dares to listen. And those who answered the whisper are never seen again. Years after the fire that destroyed the old field, the story of the Whispering Cornfield had turned into a local legend in Mason Ridge. Kids were told never to go near it, but for teenagers, it became a kind of daresome thing, thrilling and forbidden. From a distance, the field looked silent and lifeless, but at night, the dry stalks seemed to sway on their own, whispering secrets to the wind. Among the locals, 3 friends, Jake, Emily, and Colifin, hung out near the old wooden fence that surrounded the place. They liked to tell scary stories, laugh at the rumors, and tease each other about who would be brave enough to go in. For them, the field wasn't haunted. It was just the perfect spot to test their courage. One evening, while the moon was still hidden behind the clouds, Jake smirked and said, "Let's go in at midnight." They say, if you hear the whisper calling your name, you can't answer it. Emily frowned right away, shaking her head. "That's a stupid idea, Jake." But Cole, always the reckless one, laughed. "Come on, it's just wind. Let's prove it's all nonsense." After a bit of back and forth, they agreed. Midnight, 3 flashlights, 1 haunted cornfield. When they finally climbed the fence and stepped inside, the air changed. The wind that had been blowing moments before completely stopped. The chirping of crickets disappeared. Even the rustling of leaves went silent. It was as if the whole world was holding its breath. They walked slowly through the tall corn stalks, the light from their flashlights shaking in the misty air. Then, without warning, a sound came from somewhere ahead. Soft, raspy, barely human. Jake froze, his voice caught in his throat. "Emily, did you just call me?" he whispered. Emily shook her head quickly, eyes wide. "No, that wasn't me." Cole tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. Then, the whisper came again, clearer this time, and closer. "Jake, go back. My corn hasn't grown yet." Panic hit them all at once. They turned and ran, trying to find the way out, but something was wrong. No matter which way they ran, the path twisted endlessly. The stalks grew taller, thicker, closing in around them like a living maze. The air felt heavier, colder. Their footsteps sounded muffled, like the ground was swallowing the sound. Then, through the rising wind, came another noisy, low, rasping laugh. It sounded like an old man's voice, distant, but close enough to feel in their ears. Emily screamed, dropping her flashlight. Darkness swallowed them whole for a moment. Jake thought he saw something standing between the rows of corn, a tall, thin figure, wearing a straw hat, motionless, under the faint moonlight. The figure tilted its head slowly, as if watching them, and then, just before everything went completely dark, Jake heard the whisper again, right next to his ear. "Don't run. The harvest isn't over." That morning, a heavy fog hung over Mason Ridge when the townspeople found two teenagers stumbling out of the field. Emily and Cole, their clothes were torn and covered in mud, their faces pale, as if drained of life itself. They didn't cry, didn't scream. They just stood there, trembling, staring blankly at the mist that still hovered above the cornfield. Jake was nowhere to be seen. When people tried to ask what had happened, neither of them could speak. Only once did Cole whisper, barely audible. He called his own name before collapsing into someone's arms. A few hours later, the police arrived and sealed off the area. They entered the field with flashlights and tracking dogs. But something about the place felt wrong. The air inside was dense, suffocatingly still, and colder than it should have been. The dogs refused to go further, whining and backing away with their tails between their legs. After hours of searching, all they found was a half-burnt straw hat buried in the damp soil, and a single line of footprints that stopped abruptly in the middle of the field, as if whoever made them had simply vanished into thin air. There was no blood, no struggle marks, just silence. A silence so heavy it made everyone's skin crawl. That night, the town stayed awake. No one dared to step outside, but they all heard it, the whisper. It drifted from the direction of the cornfield, low and rough, like a voice rising from beneath the earth. "My harvest is complete," it said. No one spoke of it. No one looked out the window. Every light in Mason Ridge stayed on until sunrise. In the days that followed, Emily and Cole were taken out of town for treatment. Emily never spoke again. Cole, on the other hand, woke up screaming most nights, claiming he could still hear the whisper, calling their names from far away. Jake was never found. The police labeled it a missing person case and closed it quietly. But the people of Mason Ridge knew better. They knew Jake hadn't disappeared. He'd been claimed. The field still stands there today, on the edge of town, filled with wild corn that somehow grows year after year, even though no one dares to plant it. Locals say that when the full moon rises, you can still hear the whisper if you listen closely enough, a soft voice calling your name from deep inside the corn. And if you ever answer that call, you become part of it. Because in the whispering cornfield, once your name is spoken, you never come back. Like and subscribe for the next horror story.